Israel is maintaining its brutal siege on northern Gaza, with the humanitarian situation worsening daily. As the crisis deepens, negotiations for a ceasefire and hostage deal are underway in Doha, with Israel considering painful concessions to secure the release of the detainees. At the same time, the United States presidential race is nearing its summit, with just over a week left until Election Day on November the 5th. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are now making last-ditch efforts in key states to sway undecided voters. Welcome to In Focus. As the humanitarian situation in northern Gaza worsens, Israel's brutal siege continues to take its toll. With ceasefire negotiations resuming in Doha, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has acknowledged the painful concessions needed to secure the return of Israeli detainees. France's Le Monde has highlighted that in just over 3 weeks, the Israeli occupation army has killed hundreds of Palestinians in the enclaves. The paper reported that Israel seeks to empty the area of its inhabitants, with around 60,000 people driven from their homes, while those who remain are abandoned to their fate. It also cited a recent description by the Israeli NGO Taslim, which referred to Israeli actions in northern Gaza as ethnic cleansing, stating the magnitude of the Israeli crimes is impossible to describe, not just because hundreds of thousands are enduring starvation and disease without access to medical care and bombardment and gunfire, but because Israel has cut them off from the world. And to provide a deeper analysis of these latest developments, we're now joined from Amman by Dr. Hassan Daja, a professor of strategic studies. A very good day, sir, and it's a pleasure to have you with us on our show. Dr. Daja.
Good evening to you and all.
Sir, in your opinion, what do the Israeli statements about painful concessions signify? Of course, I'm referring to the Yoav Gallant.
I think Israeli government, they don't want to go to deep negotiation. Even they send their delegation to Doha with the other delegation from United States. I think just this to gain more time to, let's say, kill more people in northern Gaza and to let northern Gaza to be empty from its people. So they just trying to get time by this negotiation, and this negotiation will not end to exchange the hostages.
Mr. Daja, sorry to interrupt you at this point, but when I said painful concessions and to secure the release of detainees, which was a statement made by, of course, Yoav Gallant, I meant to say that he was criticizing Benjamin Netanyahu. So what is the importance and significance of such statement at this point?
I think the significant point is the differences between Gallant and Netanyahu in the way how they are managing to return the hostages from Gaza. I think both of them, they are not going aside.
Yes, there's internal criticism, sir, between both of them now.
Yes, the criticism is there because, you know, there's the differences of vision and opinion. Gallant, he want to go to, let's say, to go to negotiation that will save the hostages and return them back. But Netanyahu, he's not concerned with the hostages' life or to return them alive to Israel. So that
Sir,
is the
how do
main
you read
point.
the importance of the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant when he is in a confrontation and criticizing Benjamin Netanyahu at this point of this unprecedented war that's taking place in the Middle East?
Because Gallant, he is the responsible, let's say, at the military side, and he know what his soldiers is facing in Gaza, and he knows that the Israeli government will not fulfill their promises to return the hostages from Gaza by war. He know that. He know very well that he will not get the hostages out of Gaza by military means. But Netanyahu don't concern with these things. So these differences, it's following from the beginning of the military process in Gaza. From beginning, they are in different sides and different ways of views about what if they should remain in Gaza or should withdraw from Gaza or all these things. So
Okay,
differences
sir, this
huge.
narrative means that Gallant sees that the military now is very under so much pressure, is facing a lot of challenges, and Netanyahu is caring about himself, whereas Gallant now is caring about the Israeli citizen and the detainees at this point, which is internal criticism from the government, which is in favor of all that's happening now at this point.
Yes, that's right. Because, even the opposition parties, they says this war is Netanyahu's war. So even Gallant, he know that Netanyahu, he want to remain in war because his future, political future, is related to the war. If the war stops, then I think there will be many questions, big question about his future, if he will remain in the office or not. So these differences let Netanyahu continue and not to listen to the opposition or to Gallant as a Minister of Defense to go in a true negotiation to accept the ideas and the initiative presented by Egypt or by Qatar or by USA. So
Sir, how do
war,
the current negotiations in Doha are different from previous rounds, and what are the chances of success this time, as we see that the Israeli side has become more weaker, of course, after the international condemnation, and of course after France backing off and the United Kingdom backing off, and of course the United States at this point, as the Biden administration is moving on to elections. So how do you read it, sir?
I read it as the U.S. want to send a message to all the world that she's involved in a negotiation which will end to make peace in Middle East. But the true, there's double stand in American speech and messages to world and to Israel. I think United States is supporting Israel, and their activities are armed activities which they are doing in Gaza or in Lebanon. But at the same time, they want to send message that they want to search for peace, and they want to, let's say, make more efforts to make peace in Middle East and not to extend the war to be comprehensive war. That is why U.S., because of the election, sent the Blinken and the other delegation, CIA delegation, for the negotiation in Doha. But I don't think that there will be a real result that we can implement it in the ground. It won't be, because Netanyahu, if they will reach to any initiative that will be accepted by Hamas, Netanyahu will refuse and reject this any steps to solve the hostages problem.
Okay, sir, did you see that Netanyahu reached actually an objective, any of his objectives in this entire war where he took us into a region, all-out war at this point, do you think that he reached any of his objectives on top of which the detainees, which are not yet released and we are fighting over, leave alone the United States and of course the stance of the United States, which we cannot discuss at this point because they're double standard. I don't know what they're aiming at as they're moving into a new phase now in less than a week.
I think Netanyahu maybe he get success in some certain logistic and some certain process, but not in strategic way. He gets some part or some objective as he succeeded in it by entering Gaza now, but he's not getting his objective to destroy the leader of Hamas. Hamas is ideology, is an idea, is a liberation movement. So Hamas
and Hezbollah, sir, and all the leaders he has assassinated, he didn't reach anywhere, by the way. No. Thank you very much, Dr. Hassan Adaja, for your valuable insights. Of course, we need chapters to discuss this together because you're such an informative guest that we'd love always to have you with us on our program, Professor of Strategic Studies. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
What I call an opportunity economy.
We will make America great.
We're ready to fight for it.
As one people, we are moving forward.
We will make America safe again.
With just over a week left until the U.S. presidential election on November the 5th, the battle between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris is intensifying. Both candidates are ramping up their efforts in key states, focusing on pivotal issues to sway undecided voters. The New York Times described Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden as a closing carnival of grievances and racism. The article highlighted the rally's inflammatory tone, with speakers making decisive remarks about various groups, sparking widespread criticism. It portrayed the event as a release of anger, with Trump framing himself as a defender against the enemy within. This rally set a contentious tone in the final days of campaign, with critiques decrying the decisive rhetoric, while supporters viewed it as a bold rejection of political correctness. And to discuss these developments, we are joined by Ginger Champion, an American affairs expert. A very good day, sir, and it's a pleasure to have you with us on the show. Ms. Champion.
Yes, thank you so much for having me today, and greetings to your viewers.
It's always a pleasure to have you with us on the show. Ms. Champion, let's start with Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden. He spoke much of immigration and used strong language against illegal immigrants. How do you see this messaging resonating with voters, especially considering the tight race?
Yes, that is an excellent question. And one of the things we are seeing is that immigration is becoming a very hot button issue this election cycle. As we may remember from 2016, former President Trump ran on the promise of building a wall between the United States and Mexico, and he would reduce illegal immigration, which he did to a certain extent. The Democrats in Congress resisted the building of the wall. However, what we're seeing now is after nearly 4 years of the Biden-Harris administration having a policy of completely open borders, this has greatly alarmed the majority of the American people. In
Okay.
fact, polls are showing.
Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes. Oh, no problem. Polls are showing that more than 60% of the American people on both sides, Democrats and Republicans, are becoming alarmed at the volume, the numbers of immigrants coming across the border. One thing that's very surprising, we are seeing in the minority communities, for example, in Black African American communities, also in Hispanic communities and Asian communities, that the flood of millions of people coming across the border has alarmed working class people who normally vote for Democrats in large numbers. They are reliable Democrat voters. However, they have this perception that the millions of people coming across the border are taking their jobs, increasing the cost of housing because they all need housing. They are filling up the hospitals because they all need medical care. So many of these factors, in addition to the increase in prices, the economy, inflation, these are all tied in with the numbers of people coming across the border. So
Okay, let's
President
leave
Trump
it
is
there.
planning
I'll be back again, but first I have to say a very good welcome to G. Davis, a professor of political science and Democratic Party member. A very good day, sir, and it's a pleasure to have you with us on the show.
Thank you. Thank
Dr.
you.
Davis,
I'm not,
Kamala Harris's campaign in Pennsylvania framed the election as the most constitutional in recent history. Do you agree with her assessment?
well, thank you very much. And with her assessment, and can you repeat the question? I had a hard time hearing you.
Kamala Harris's campaign in Pennsylvania framed the election as the most consequential one in recent history, sir. Do you agree with her?
Yes. And I do want to say one thing at the beginning. I am not a member of the Democratic Party, so
You're not a member of the Democratic Party, sir?
I am not. I'm not.
You're
So
not? Sorry,
I am
very
not.
sorry, sir.
That's okay. That's okay. But I do believe that this is, in fact, a very consequential election. It's a defining moment in some ways in American history because it will decide between two fundamentally different worldviews. And there is one the Democrats are proposing, and there's one the Republicans are proposing that have fundamentally different visions for the United States and the world in the future. So as far as this being a very important election, I would agree with that.
Okay, back again to Ms. Champman. A recent CBC News poll shows a narrow gap between the candidates. Ms. Champman, given the significant gender divide in voting, what strategies could Trump employ to bridge his support gap among women?
Well, one of the things we are seeing, which former President Trump has been doing in his rallies, we saw that last night at Madison Square Garden. Trump is trying to unify people. He is appealing directly to women voters in terms of their pocketbook. You can be able to afford groceries. You will be able to afford your electric bill. You will be able to afford gasoline. And even though Harris and Michelle Obama have been campaigning, trying to make the election a one issue, namely abortion, to attract women. This is something Democrats have done with great success in the past. They tell women, your right to abortion will go away. You will lose your reproductive rights. This election cycle, that argument is losing some of its potency because of the economic conditions, because of the rise in crime. Women in particular are very worried about the rise in crime. So Trump is unifying people. And once again, the Democrat strategy has been to break people into groups. This group is Black, this group is white, these are women, these are homosexuals. They divide people into groups and then appeal to those groups specifically, but this does cause a conflict between the groups. Now, in contrast, former President Trump, he is campaigning on unifying. We are all in this together. We are all going to work together to make America great again. He's appealing directly to wives by saying, get your husband up off the couch, go vote for me, and I will make your pocketbook less stressed. I will lower prices. So we're finding that the Harris campaign and the Democrats are speaking to abstract issues. They're talking about reproductive rights. They're talking about the Republicans being racist. Trump is Hitler. They're generating discord and civil unrest, which is very dangerous. One of the things we are looking at is after this election, no matter who wins, it looks like half the country will not accept the winner. And this is leading to increasing levels of civil
Okay,
unrest.
doesn't this bother you at this point when you feel that half the country won't accept whoever wins?
Yes, this is a very dangerous situation we are in right now. We are already seeing both the Democrat and the Republican Party filing preemptive lawsuits in court to stop counting of ballots that are mailed in and received after Election Day. This is a very big deal. This case just was won in Mississippi. This affects Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas, where one court has said mail-in ballots cannot be counted if they arrive after Election Day. The Republicans are trying to rush this to the Supreme Court to get it to apply to all the states. This will cause one more conflict.
I'll be back again, but I want to ask Dr. Davis. Sorry again for when I said you're a Democratic member. Over 41 million Americans have already cast their ballots through early voting. How do you interpret this high early vote turnout, and what does it indicate about voter engagement compared to previous elections, sir?
It indicates that there is a change in the United States in that a lot of people, to avoid the long wait and crowd of Election Day, have decided to vote early.
Why is this change, sir, at this point? Because of the inflation, because of the economic situation in the United States, because of the immigrants, because of abortion, because of all the issues?
Why it's actually I think it's actually much more practical in that, depending on where you live in the United States, the geographic zone where you live determines how long it takes you to vote. In other words, there are some districts where when you arrive, you have to wait in line for 2 to 3 hours to cast a ballot, and others where you wait in line for 2 minutes. And so, in people that live in highly congested areas, and they would be much more likely to pre-vote. And in some cases, don't forget, the other thing we see in the United States is our population is aged. We have a lot more senior citizens, and some states automatically mail ballots to people over a certain age, like over age 64, whatever that would be. And so automatically people who are much older would then be voting by mail. So I just think it's part of it. I think honestly that it goes back to COVID and to the elections that were held in that time, and more options were coming forward for voters. Now, in truth, it makes it much more complicated because if people are standing in line and they're showing an ID, then it's the way that voting has always been done in the past. So this is new, and to be honest, I don't think that all the implications are widely understood. It gets politicized by both sides. But the problem is that, yeah, we have changed the way we vote in the United States. And also, part of it may be a good thing because if you're voting early, generally you tend to vote more.
Does this always happen, sir, or it's the first time to happen voting early?
No, it happened in the last election. Like I said, the really major change in the United States has nothing to do with partisanship, but more with the reaction to COVID and running elections during the pandemic and trying to find alternative ways for Americans to cast their ballot. So this is not really, it has no, it's not an indicator of our economy. It's not an indicator of partisanship. We have other indicators of that, but this is just the natural unfolding of our domestic political institutions in responding to the pandemic. So I wouldn't read too much into that, but So this, I think, is just an ordinary part of American life. And
Sir, sorry, because I'm running
Yes.
out of time and I have to wrap up this episode. Thank you very much, Ms. Chapman and Dr. Davis, for sharing your insights on the latest developments in the United States elections, which are running so close by next week. With just days to go until Americans head to the polls, the race remains highly competitive and neck to neck, and every move could be decisive. This wraps up our episode today for In Focus. Remember to stay updated by following Qnews on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Qnews Egypt and the latest developments.